As Django said, my name is Christy Stockman, and I am currently serving as the president of your Board of Trustees. And I would just like to thank whoever brought the beautiful flowers. It's a perfect example of us coming together as a community to make our space better. Thank you. Serving in this manner has been an absolute thrill and deep honor. We have a great system here at U2C3. When the new board is elected in July, Michael Causey, who has been serving as the vice president, will become the president, and I will become the immediate past president. I will continue to serve on the board in an ex officio manner, which is just a fancy way to say that I can speak and I can advise, but I won't get a vote anymore. I wish everyone would take a turn at serving on the board. It really does give you a new perspective of your ministry and your spiritual work. What is spiritual work? That's what we'd like to talk about today. When you come in here, when you came in, you were given a pencil and a slip of paper. There's some in the back if you need one, to write down anything that comes to mind as I'm talking. If you think of a question or you think of a statement you'd like to say, you're welcome to write it down so that you can share your thoughts with us. There's also copies of the answers and questions from the Potluck in the fall. So if you want a copy of that, you're welcome to look that over as well. I think Kristen is going to pass them around. She's coming around with them. And it's online as well. Unitarian Universalism is a unique religion. We do not have a creed or doctrine. Instead, we are defined by our covenant. Our covenant, in our context, means we make a promise to one another about how we will behave. It is our declared intention. I love our covenant here at U2C3. It begins with love is the doctrine of this church. I've heard about a dozen other covenants from other UU churches, mostly around Texas, and none of them speak to me as well as ours does. They are all very similar both to one another and similar to ours, but none captures the power and heart of our covenant. Our covenant continues with the quest for truth is its sacrament and service is its prayer. I love each of these sentences. So beautiful. I get a little nervous sometimes because we've had them for so long that we could come to see them as being perfect and beyond any need for change. Calcification into a creed or doctrine is precisely what we wish to avoid. We do not fear change. We embrace change, which is why after serving for a year as past president, I will roll off the board entirely. Hopefully new people, including newer members with fresh ideas, will build on what we have done in new ways with new words. So let us continue the conversation we began in the fall about the essential details. We are a lay-led congregation, and I think we are trying to figure out what exactly that means for us here at U2C3. How do we care for one another? How does our congregation interact with our community and the world? That's what we, those of us serving on your Board of Trustees, would like to know more about. I'd like to introduce you to those currently serving. Margaret Lucero is the immediate past president, and Michael Causey, as I mentioned before, is the vice president. Frances Moray is the secretary. I think there she is. And Ren Aldrich is the treasurer. We have Django Sanders, Angela Leach, I do not believe is here today, and Glenn Kiley are the three at-large members. And we want to hear more about your ideas on how to make things work within our church community. I've heard it said that everyone has a ministry. If we think of ministry as something that defines our purpose or our role, one thing we as a congregation want to accomplish is to help each person find their ministry. That is our spiritual work. We are called here for the highest purpose. We are not a social club or political organization or civic group. In choosing your ministry, you get to decide what kind of contribution you want to make. What are your gifts? What are your passions? Now, I'd like to open up the mic here at the front to anyone who would like to speak. There are also folks watching online who are welcome to post any questions or statements in the chat, and those will be read aloud by Margaret so that everyone can participate. While we're going to be fairly informal, please limit your question and remarks to a few minutes until everyone has had a chance to speak. Please come up to the mic to be recognized. Okay. Thank you for coming up to the mic, that way everyone can hear.
Hi, my name is it on?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. My name is Cindy Forbes. I've been a member of this church for 10 years. I've been a UU for 35 years now and belong to a couple of other different UU churches and have visited other UU churches. And so one thing that I would like to see in this church reoccur is the singing of songs, specifically UU hymns. I was so thrilled today that we did, some of us sang along, even though we weren't exactly invited to. It was okay, some of us sang along. And I just think it's a really important part of a worship service. And frankly, to me, it's not a worship service if we're not singing at least one hymn together, preferably two. And if for those of you who are new, we have a UU hymnal with a lot of good songs in it that many of us know. And the good thing about it, if we use this, is it has the music. So if you know how to read the music, it makes it a little easier to sing along. So I think that I did do a little research on this just because I thought, well, maybe I'm out of touch. But I looked at all of the churches in Texas with 50 members or more, and most of them have recent services posted all before. And all of those, every single one of them, have people singing hymns still. So that's just something we do. Hope we do it every Sunday from now on.
Thank you, Cindy. I think that was also in the feedback in the fall that we really all miss singing together as a group. And definitely that's something we want to incorporate more of in the future. So thank you for that. I do not think you're alone. And there is actually, we do have two hymnals. There's also the light blue or the teal blue book that we do have. And maybe that's something we can pass out along among the chairs when we're before service so folks can take a look at that. Absolutely. Is there anyone else? Please come to the mic. Go to this one so they can see you online too.
Hello, I'm Michelle Withers, and I sing with a band sometimes, and I also love hymnals. I love some hymns, not hymnals, some hymns, but I also love contemporary worship. And as you know, Chris and I do a lot of contemporary worship. I would have to, in my opinion, disagree with every Sunday doing hymns. Sometimes it's appropriate because there are some hymns that I really love. But personally, for me, I've done that a lot, and I feel like, I don't know, I just love contemporary worship. I love contemporary songs. I think a lot of people can relate to them. But I'm not opposed to singing hymns. I just want to say that. I just don't think it should be every Sunday. That's my opinion. Anyway.
Thank you. And we do have the second hymnal, the teal blue, that has more modern music in it and not just strictly hymns. So yeah, and definitely we have the lyrics sometimes up for more contemporary music. I think it's just the act of singing together as a whole congregation that is really important and kind of to hold the space, the spiritual space of singing. Yes, please.
So being one of the people that programs the music for the services, we have discussed getting back into doing more hymns this year. So the reason that we haven't up until now is because of the COVID guidelines, that kind of thing. We have been very conscious about things happening, but we have had a COVID spike in the congregation in several months at this point. I think that we are good to go. We would like to discuss doing at least maybe one every other week, something like that. I have talked to Jim about that in the past. So we
fantastic.
are going to be doing more.
Wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you so much.
Good morning, I'm Joy Wright, and I am not a member. I'm a welcomed guest, and I'm welcomed more often than not. So, as such, I would like to give you some feedback as a person who came to this community in August of last year and has been coming since and has volunteered in a couple of different realms. As first of all, as a person walking through the door, I would have appreciated any kind of literature. Not that I don't know about UU, because I do. But I think that we need to give our newcomers and our visitors information that they can take with them in their hands. And I know that seems pretty old-fashioned because everything's available online. But it's a good. One of the things I brought up at the meeting that we had this was multiple forms of communication. The more different types of communication you provide, the more people you are actually going to connect with. And so I'm going to step into that realm in my second comment. And my second comment is, I did volunteer to become a worship assistant, and I have not yet done so, partly because of the way the worship assistant program is currently working at the church, where you had to download an app
Whoa.
to your phone. That wasn't me. You had to download an app to your phone or to your computer to be able to communicate with other people that are on the worship associates group. And I wasn't willing to do that because I got too much crap on my phone already. And then the third thing I wanted to mention is, yes, I was in one of the groups that discussed reformation of a choir here, because there are lots of us who enjoy singing, and we do feel that as a form of praise, and that is an important a part of my spirituality in my community. And then the other thing goes back to communication as well, is if there is a format to offer suggestions for upcoming sermons. That's been something that's been offered and hasn't been followed up on from back in September, and it still hasn't been fully followed up on. So I still have concerns regarding that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm just going to jump in real quick. I would like to invite all the children to RE.
Since we didn't do that earlier.
We did not do that. I apologize.
Those of you who want to come on. We'll take all ages.
Go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Well, good morning.
Thank you.
I'm Frances Morey, and I'm serving as secretary right now. Poorly, I must admit. But anyway, I want to say this. There should never be no story for all ages. When we have poets in our midst, one being Joy Wright, who could substitute with an open-air mic style reading of one of their poems or someone else's poem. So there's always room for a story. And I just wanted to throw that into the mix.
Thank you.
My name is Debbie Sunderman. I have been a member of the church for somewhere around 25 years. What I want to say is that I want everyone to be brave and bold. In my journey at this church, I've done a lot of things, and I want to talk about them a little bit, not to say, look at everything I did, but to say, look at all the things that I should probably not have done and could have done and did and got away with. Like, I don't have children's skills to speak of, but the first thing I did was get recruited onto an RE committee. Okay. The next thing that happened was they said, well, you know, it would be really cool if we had a children's choir. Who would like to lead the children's choir? I have no business leading a choir of any kind, but we had a children's choir, and we had a lot of fun. And through that, we kind of morphed into doing children's plays that were Sunday services for us. And I have no skill as a thespian, but I wrote some plays, and we put the kids on and had a good time. And some of them were polished. But I got recruited to do the feasibility study for the capital campaign, which is a skill set that maybe is closer to being a lawyer, but was not something that I had ever done before. Over time, it was easier for me to do things that I like to do just on my own, where I didn't have to depend on a committee and have meetings. And so I developed the jewelry that we sold as a fundraiser and a bunch of t-shirts that we have sold over the years for fundraisers. And when...
I still wear those t-shirts.
Yeah, thank you for that. In 2014, when we had a really bad congregational meeting because nobody really knew what was happening on the board, the issues that the board was facing, I started just voluntarily doing a newsletter to let the congregation know what was happening. And for the better part of 6 years, did that for every month. It was, I identified a need and I jumped into it whether I belonged there or not. And more recently, I've been singing with the band, which some of you may say you shouldn't be doing that.
Not at all.
But I just want to say that the philosophy of a small church that David Owen talked about back when we were building this facility was that you let the people do what they want to do, and it will grow. You will have people doing things that they find are fun. So don't wait for someone to say, I have something for you. You need to just come up with it on your own, fill a void, do something that you enjoy, but get involved and know that you are welcome and loved, and it will be a wonderful experience, whether you should have done it or not.
Hear, hear. Excellent. Brave and bold, absolutely. And that was exactly what I was talking about when I said, think about what your passions are, because it is supposed to be a fun, enjoyable experience, getting more involved. Yes, please.
Hi, guys. So I really wanted to touch on the fact that we have, so many opportunities to get involved in this church. Whether it's AV, whether it's worship team, whether it's being on the board, whether it's helping Jessica and Kirk with the grounds. There is so much that you can get into, and it's an amazing thing. We have a youth group that is 18 to 24-year-olds, and we're starting to talk about certain service projects and things like that we'd like to get involved in. So there's so many pockets that everybody can get into. And it's all welcomed and it's all appreciated. I mean, every ounce of the work that you put into this church, it goes back in tenfold to yourself as well as everybody else in here. So please, if you have a giving heart, if you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes to just clean up a little bit, or just, just have a conversation with somebody you see is having a bad time. Every little thing in this church helps and matters. And I just think, we are the church. We are the church, not this building. So please, get involved. We'd love to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you so much. Yes, please.
Hey everyone, so the young adults group is 18 to 35. So just wanted to clarify that. And we did start that group just out of a conversation. So if there's any group that you do want to start that you don't see here, like a book club that you would be interested in, just take the initiative, talk to Hannah, and just have the reins ready. I love that you mentioned that we are the church, not the building. I think there's definitely a balance between that, because there's a lot that we could do with the physical aspects of this church. And the mentality kind of shows through how we treat the space. And there's a lot that could be done with the grounds that takes a lot of investment and work. But my main thing that I really would love to see this church fix is our stained glass windows. I don't know if y'all have noticed the clouds have some damage from the hurricanes. And whenever I first came in here, I was like, aren't clouds supposed to be white? So yeah, we found out that the windows cracked during one of the past hurricanes, and so the glue behind the stained glass kind of got ruined, which is really sad. And I know that our budget is limited, but I think that's something that we should really consider doing this year or the next one, because you want people to come in and just really appreciate the space, because a lot of other churches have like really beautiful buildings, and I wish we could just increase the beauty, because it's all comes together. So thank you.
Thank you. Did you have something you want me to read it? Darby's asking, what are we doing to regrow the congregation that has affected churches everywhere? As everyone knows, COVID did have a strong impact on our church. There are still folks who watch online and are very active, involved members, but they're not going to come to church in person. So, that is something we have to consider. And it's not even just COVID. They're, flu season, they're calling it the quadruple pandemic kind of thing. Thankfully we have a nice large building, so we can have good air circulation, and we have hand sanitizer and masks for those who want to use masks. And we certainly welcome anyone who wants to use a mask and come in. We don't have a specific program. We have talked about maybe doing some outreach to folks who we haven't seen in several years, just to see if maybe they would be interested in coming back. We can use help with that. If you want to help make phone calls, emails, sometimes it's a matter of not just sending an email, sending a phone call, maybe finding them on Facebook Messenger, but you've got to make several different overtures before you actually reach the person to get the feedback. So if you'd like to help with that, if there's anybody who'd like to help with that, we could use that for sure. Yes, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Respond to some of the things. I just want to bring this down a little bit for my size. And also, when you talk at the microphone, you're supposed to be 2 inches from the microphone. And I'm hard of hearing, so I appreciate it. I can't do lip reading all the time. Anyway, it's a matter of welcoming people and making them feel good about being here. And people that just walked in and no one's greeting them, you know, you need to do these little things. And I know we try, but sometimes we don't all participate because we don't know that we're supposed to. Outreach. I have to talk about somebody I met somewhere at some social function, and I mentioned that I was here, a member of the Unitarian Church. She said, "Oh, yeah, I used to go." I said, "Well, why don't you go anymore?" She said, "Well, I have a very stressful job and a very full life, and I can't respond to all the requests for people for volunteer work. I can't do it. So maybe we should lighten up and put more effort into having a lovely service on Sunday and not trying to get people to volunteer constantly when they can't, when they don't have time, and then they start feeling guilty." So that's just a cautionary remark I'd like to make. We also have a lot of online things set up, and one is called the Winter Festival. Well, we're not using that right now, so why don't we change that to book club notes? And maybe we could have an online book club for people that would like to participate but don't have the way to move around and be somewhere at a time certain and all that. It's a thought. In the spirit of circularity, past presidents could join RE for a year of debriefing. Thank you.
Yeah, just one quick comment. I have another comment from Kathy Westergren that she is taking notes on who's interested in a choir. So would somebody like to volunteer to start taking names to do that? I know
Rob
Frances
is
just
saying,
said that she didn't want to sign work. Okay, so if you want to join a choir, please contact Rob Allen. He's on the worship team, and he does music almost every week here, and maybe a choir will emerge.
that would be fantastic.
A quick response to that, we've been talking about doing a choir again for, well, since I got back. That was
Yeah.
maybe 2.5 years ago, so don't think it's not in the works, but we're trying. I was hoping that Kim Bissell would come back and direct. I don't know if I have the wherewithal to direct, but I will do the best that I can.
I'll be happy to reach out to her and tell her there's a real strong interest and see if she'd be willing to do that. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, with that, come on, let's go.
All right.
Just a quick note to say it might be interesting to try to do choir practice as a Zoom.
It doesn't work, Frances.
It might be interesting to
The-
try it as an experiment, because I had people in Austin and people in Corpus Christi who needed to learn a song together, and they did it, and it was weird, but it worked.
It is very difficult to do sound over Zoom when you have multiple inputs and outputs. It is difficult. It requires much more technical expertise than you might think. So in-person choir is, I think, what we're looking to start with.
This is, I guess, a question. I hope I don't sound too much like a fuddy-duddy. But this is, I believe, the only church that does the candlelight procession. It's something we started just a few years ago, for y'all who are new. It's not a UU tradition. It's not even a long tradition of this church. And I've tried it, and it doesn't do anything for me. So I just want to know why this works for you, those who do it. And also, it took the place of our joys and concerns, which used to be voiced originally by the congregation, but that got unwieldy. At least, maybe not here, but in another church I belong to, people raising their hand, saying their joys and concerns, and that got out of hand. So it went to the minister or the worship associate to, express ones that were really important, like somebody died or somebody had a child or whatever. But now we do this just silently, and I just kind of don't get it, and it honestly reminds me of Catholic Mass, where people get in line and go up to get the wafer. So I just can't. And I wonder if could we change the order, because it's supposed to be preparing us for the silent meditation and prayer, and yet we do it after that. So there's a matter of the order also. And those who aren't getting benefit, could they be doing something else while the others are doing that? I don't know, chanting perhaps.
I'm Lauren Cantatori-Causey. I've been a member of this church since 2006, and I was the religious education director for a number of years. I've been active in a lot of the activities here, from helping with the grounds to working now with the worship team. We're always looking for new suggestions with the worship. For me personally, the candles give me a time to silently focus on what's happening in my life that is a good or often a concerning thing, and it gives me an opportunity to kind of go inward, and just the physical act of lighting that candle kind of brings that into focus for me. I don't know that we could look at changing the order. The worship team is taking all of these pieces of information, and we'd like to take a look at those kinds of things. But for me personally, that's what that brings to me.
And we have, thank you, Lauren. We have had this tradition, this church has been around since the 1950s, I think, 50s or 60s. We've been around a long, long time, and there have been time periods when we have had joys and concerns without candles, and there have been other time periods in the 70s and 80s when we did the candles. So it's evolved back and forth. It just kind of comes and goes in waves. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Aline Birch. I've been a member, I don't know how many years, a long time, back when we were on Horn Road. I had the opportunity to play for a UU church in Davenport, Iowa this summer, and they did the same thing with candle lighting silently. They combined it, they did the offertory first, which doesn't take much time in a small church, and then went right into the silent joys and concern with the music playing continuously through both segments. And then they also, if anybody wanted a message specifically read to the congregation, they could submit that in a chat online, and usually there weren't many, maybe a couple that were actually joys or concerns that were actually voiced. I think when we did the voiced joys and concerns previously, that it kind of became a personal monologue in the case of several people, and that went on, and it was very disruptive to the service. So that's the danger of that. So that's just maybe an idea, to mull over as a possibility. The other thing that brought me into the church was we used to have these coffee houses that Colin Sykes would put together. And it was kind of the old beatnik atmosphere with the Chianti bottles with the candle wax dripping down, and people could come and read poetry and sing folk music. And it was kind of, I think, a niche for this church in a way to attract people from outside of the church to come in and get an idea of what we're all about and meet some of us. And I'm thinking that, that would be a really good outreach maybe to resume.
We would love to do a coffee house. We're looking for someone who might be willing to head that up, or maybe 2 or 3 people who'd be willing to head that up. We would love to have another coffee house. Losing Colin was a big hole in this church because not only did he help put the coffee house together, but he was involved in the community so much he was able to, let people know about it and just kind of drag people. We would have a huge audience that were not congregants. There were folks from outside the church who would come. So yeah, we just don't know quite how to fill that hole yet.
I'll take a lead on that. If anybody wants to help me, please let me know.
Joy is saying she'll take a lead to have a coffee house. Oh, fantastic. Excellent. Thank you so much, Joy. Well, that will be the next thing. We'll get with Joy and find a date on the calendar. We have started a planning calendar so that we can kind of space these things out throughout the year and make sure everybody knows what's coming up when. But we'll get with you, Joy. Thank you so much.
I'll give you some ideas, Joy, but I don't want to take the lead on that. But that's a really, one of the things I want to say is that someone had mentioned how, well, Chris and I, because we don't know a lot of the people here. Sometimes we do. We started some sort of a low-key supper club, meeting with a few other couples and just, outside the box. And we'd love to have supper with you, because I think the whole thing about church and, they're talking about it's not the building, it's within us, is getting to know each other. And the best thing how we can grow stronger is connection. And he's going to go right after. He's probably going to refute me. No, I'm just kidding. That man.
Refute everything she said.
That's right. 30 years of this, guys. We're also talking about love in a couple of weeks, so called What's Love Got to Do with This? But anyway, connection is important. And so I would love to do some supper clubs. I love the idea of the, what is it called, coffee house, some poetry, a little bit of background music. I mean, that sounds so hip, you know what I'm saying?
Sounds like a blast.
We could spread it out on Facebook and all these social medias, get some people in here, and people can figure out what we are about, and just, and have that strong connection. So if you don't know anything about me or Christian or Christy or Django or Rob, if you don't know a few things, we want to meet with you guys. We want to have
Let's have lunch. Let's have dinner.
Let's have lunch today. Let's connect. Let's get together. And we want to, connect with you guys. Last night we connected with Diane Johnson and Bill Reed, and they're super cool people. I mean, from Salt Lake City, wow, And so anyway, we got some super cool people here. One more thing, I do love the candles. Just want to tell you that. Sorry.
Thank you, Michelle.
Just to follow up with some words of inspiration, and give a round of applause, I'll wait. So just following up on what she said with a few words of inspiration, we call ourselves Unitarians. Well, then we must unite. We must never acquiesce. For it is together that we prevail.
He's doing great speech.
I did want to draw your attention to, in the back corner, there is a box with stones to the side, and there's a book with a pen. And it is for before and after service. If you would like to write down your joys and concerns and put a rock in the box to represent that joy or concern, you're more than welcome to do that. And we can also start reading some of those joys and concerns during when people are coming up for the candle. I'll be happy to talk with the worship team about adding that specifically so that we'll start having spoken joys and concerns as well. Go ahead.
Looks like I'm up to bat. There was, justly so, some concern about feeling like you're having your arm twisted to volunteer for this, that, and the other. But I would like to comment on that. And number one is to say that volunteers only do what they want to do. And that is pretty much everybody in this room. We do what we want to do. Are you working AV because you want to? Yes. I'm the vice president. Now, there was some arm twisting there. But it involved a cup of coffee, and it did take 3.5 hours to talk me into being the vice president. But somebody asked me very, very recently, well, I don't know if I want to go to church this morning. But what I said was, well, what else would you be doing? Do you know anybody more interesting? Do you know a more interesting place? The other thing I wanted to touch on as regards volunteering is something that the board talked about whenever we weren't quite a board yet. We had all just been elected and came together. This happens each time we have a new board. They have a retreat and they talked about what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? One of the things that we discussed and we felt very strongly about, because our numbers had dwindled, and I said, I don't care, because we don't want to just go after numbers. It doesn't matter if this sanctuary is filled with people, if it's filled with people who are kind of disinterested in anything other than showing up for a sermon and then leaving without getting to know the people here who are just really, really ultimately who I love knowing. Anyways, if you volunteer, you will be, instead of just somebody filling a seat and walking out the door, you will be what we were looking for, and the word we used was invested. We're looking for invested members because invested members make a community, a closeness. They make this a